Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Kirill Macon. I'm the faculty lead for the MIT Human Insight Collaborative. It's my honor to invite MIT President Sally Kornbluth to the podium to formally begin this afternoon's program. President Kornbluth.
Thanks very much, Kirill, and good afternoon to everybody. I'm thrilled that so many of you are able to join us. What a great turnout. So I want to start by quickly thanking everyone who's part of this afternoon's program, from our exceptional faculty speakers, to our student performers, to our keynote conversationalists, Linda Henry and Min Jin Lee. So thank you all, and we're so grateful you could be part of our celebration today. So our specific purpose today is to launch a new initiative that we're calling the MIT Human Insight Collaborative, or for short, MIThic. More broadly, we're also here to celebrate the tremendous strength and importance of MIT's programs in the humanities, arts, and social sciences. Now, practically speaking, MIThic is designed to help our scholars in these human-centered disciplines go big in three different ways. First of all, MIThic will give them the resources to pursue their most innovative ideas within their discipline. It will create opportunities for them to collaborate with colleagues outside their field to advance knowledge and solve important problems. And it will encourage and enable them to explore fresh approaches to teaching our students. Those practical outcomes are very important. And at the same time, philosophically, MIThic also serves as a bold endorsement. It is an expression of how deeply we value the broad family of scholarly and artistic practices that deepen our understanding of human beings, of human behavior, human cultures, human languages, human triumphs and blunders, human values, motives, and aspirations, of the societies humans build and the trade they conduct, of the stories they tell, the art they create, and the music they compose, of the creeds and philosophies they live by or fail to, of how humans in different times and settings understand their relationship to nature, to the universe, to each other, and to the truth, of these and all the things that make us human. Exploring, analyzing, appreciating, and contributing to these fundamental aspects of the human experience, and helping our students gain the skills to do the same. As all of us know from our own lives, this work is profoundly meaningful and worthy in and of itself. And MIThic aims to bring those human-centered themes to the center of the conversation here at MIT. Now, because I lead an institution where even our sweatshirts boldly declare our enthusiasm for technology, I should be clear that we do and we must also value these human-centered fields for another reason. I want to quote a passage from a 2023 book called Power and Progress, Our 1,000-Year Struggle Over Technology and Prosperity. It is the product of an incredibly fruitful collaboration, and I think you all know our eminent faculty members, Institute Professor Doron Acemoglu from our Department of Economics, and Professor Simon Johnson of MIT Sloan. 2 weeks ago, along with a colleague from the University of Chicago, Doron and Simon were awarded the Economics Nobel. So let's give them a big hand. I'm absolutely delighted that they're both here with us today to celebrate the launch of MIThic. So thank you both for being here. So through extensive studies across centuries and including societies around the world, the work that Simon and Doron have done together demonstrates just how deeply a nation's economic growth and prosperity depend on healthy inclusive societal institutions, including the rule of law. In Power and Progress, they also reach a conclusion with specific import for all of us at MIT. They put it, history and contemporary evidence make one thing abundantly clear. There is nothing automatic about new technologies bringing widespread prosperity. Whether they do or do not is an economic, social, and political choice. Which brings me back to Mythic. Because there may never have been a more important time for society to make humane choices about new technologies. Mythic will serve in part to support SHAS faculty in their frontier work as scholars and artists and teachers. But it is also designed to inspire and enable unexpected new collaborations between SHAS faculty and colleagues in other disciplines here. Collaborations that tap the wisdom of these human-centered fields to help define, devise, and accelerate human-centered solutions to the great global challenges of our time, challenges that technology alone can never solve. The societal ravages of global warming, famine, and pandemic disease, the pressures of an aging population, the fragility of democracy, the proper guardrails for advanced life science technologies, from CRISPR to synthetic biology, the risks and opportunities of generative AI, and much, much more. In short, now, as always, we are counting on our colleagues in the humanities, arts, and social sciences to help us ask better questions, to arrive at better answers, and to prepare our students to explore, synthesize, savor, shape, and thrive in the future that will soon be theirs. Mythic is a key that was purpose-made to unlock just that potential. I want to express my gratitude to Tia Gerlio and the entire team that brought this event to life, to Charlene and Derry Kabzanel, John and Cindy Reed, Ray Stata, and Prabha Kanan and Amar Kendale, the visionary donors whose generosity made Mythic possible. And to the 3 faculty leaders who envisioned and created Mythic, SHAS Dean Augustine Rayo, Engineering Dean and Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer Anantha Chandrakasan, and SHAS Associate Dean and Mythic's founding faculty lead, Kirill Makan. So I'm delighted to join them in opening this new door with all of you today. So thank you all very much. I think we're gonna have a wonderful program, and I hope everybody enjoys it.
It is wonderful to be here for the launch of Mythic. And it feels fitting that Mythic emerged from an incredibly unlikely cross-disciplinary collaboration between a philosopher and an engineer, MIT's Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer and Dean of Engineering, Anantha Chandrakasan, just introduced by Sally, and a composer, Kirill Makin, SHAS Associate Dean. So in effect, what we have is a philosopher, an engineer, and a composer walk into a bar. Working with them and with the entire team, including Caroline Lowenthal, who is here, I know, yes, and the incredible Mythic faculty leads, has been inspiring and extraordinarily productive in much the way that I hope the Mythic collaborations will be inspiring and incredibly productive. So, as Sally mentioned, Mythic is striking as an institutional endorsement of human-centered disciplines at MIT, and it's a milestone in the history of the School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. Look, we are living through a precarious age dominated by technology. And as I'm sure you all know, we need to develop a model of innovation that marries bold technical creativity with attention to human needs and societal realities and real-world impact. What we need to do is marry the what of innovation with questions like why and for whose benefit and with what consequences. Mithic is a transformative opportunity to elevate this kind of thinking at MIT and to elevate human-centered thinking for its own sake. It's a transformative opportunity to shape the life and culture at MIT, to shape how and what we teach and study, to enrich what our students learn and what they value, to produce the collective wisdom that we need to truly build a better world. Please join me in welcoming back to the stage, Kirill Macon.
Thanks so much, Augustine. So it's an honor for me to serve as the faculty lead for Mithic. I am a composer, so I spend most of my time in bars with philosophers and engineers. I started my musical career at a young age, but as an undergraduate, I actually had 2 degrees. One was in music composition, the other was in religion. Understanding how belief can become manifest in thought and action, it changed me as a composer. And I think my successes as a composer are because of my early encounter with the humanities. So Mithic's goal of having the humanities intertwined in the research and education of MIT rings true for me. I'm pleased to introduce 2 MIT faculty members whose research are examples of Mithic's mission in action, reflecting Mithic's goal of blending humanistic understanding and technological advances to solve society's most pressing challenges. We will first hear from Susan Silby, the Leon and Ann Goldberg Professor of Humanities, Sociology, Anthropology. After Susan, we'll hear from Sendil Mulinathan, the Peter de Flores Professor of Economics and Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. Please, Susan.
Lost the technology is failing me. Okay. We are here today, as we've already heard, to launch Mithic, the MIT Human Insight Collaborative. Given MIT's mission to advance knowledge and educate students in science and technology, you might wonder whether the humanities and social sciences are actually essential to this mission to solve the world's problems. Yes, I'm here to tell you, the humanities and social sciences are fundamental to this mission because just about everything on this globe, and unfortunately a good part of the globe itself, is a product of human minds and hands. Humans and human sociality, knowing what sociality is and how it works, is the basic foundation for understanding almost everything else. The stars and the universe existed long before there were humans walking this earth, but the observation of their movement and recognition of their patterns, the names we give to the stars, and the labels and models we use to understand them are human, social constructions. How we discovered the stars and how we made up the names and the formulas are the subjects of the humanities and social sciences as well as the physical sciences. Notice that I said we made this knowledge, not Galileo alone, not Edward Hubble alone, and not our colleague Ray Weiss alone for gravitational waves. As Isaac Newton famously wrote to Robert Hooke in 1676, "If I have seen further, It is by standing on the shoulders of giants. We discover and create science and technology in communities and in relationships with others. Understanding how those communities form, how they produce, whether they manage conflict or dissolve. These are the subjects of the humanities and the social sciences. Just as carbon and genes and stars are the subjects of chemistry and biology and physics, how we think, how we produce, and what we know, and what is done with these human constructions, these are the subjects of the humanities and social sciences. Let me break this down a little bit further. Humanists concentrate on creative products, what they mean, how they communicate, what they signify to their audiences. Think about a dance, be it native culture or avant-garde, or a song, or a poem, or a novel. Social scientists concentrate on the arrangements of human action, in what kinds of organizations, of hierarchy or privilege, evolving or stable, with what kinds of norms and networks. Here, think corporations, universities, towns and cities, courts or families. Those communities and networks of people affect and shape what is produced, how it is used, and with what consequences, individually and in the aggregate, for ourselves and the worlds we live in. I am a social scientist, a sociologist, who focuses on legal institutions and the commonplace of law in everyday life. I study how the law endures and is durable through its constitution in specific organizations and through the ordinary people's habits and expectations. Some years ago, in part because of my place here at MIT, I was inspired to collaborate with scientists and engineers to see whether they experience the law in the same ways as do ordinary people. Rather than look at what happens when science enters the house of law as intellectual property or evidence in court, I look at what happens when the law enters the house of science, the lab. It turns out that scientists are really no different than others I have studied. They sometimes respond to legal rules with routinized, habitual compliance. At other times, they rely on their own judgment to determine when and how or not to comply. And sometimes they outright resist the legal rules and authorities. Turns out, no surprise, scientists are not special. What I loved about this work and what I learned and have proven is that the law that applies to everyone is in fact adapted locally to fit disciplinary variations. Each scientist responds to health, safety, and environmental regulations in ways consistent with the history, the organization, and the epistemology of their own disciplines. This means that deference to local epistemic cultures actually works to improve regulatory compliance. Law endures and is adapted and tailored in local communities. Law's reach grows because it is constituted by everyday practices of the people it affects. Now, what does this mean for Mythic, and why am I here speaking to you today? Because today we are wondering about the next big innovation affecting human life, affecting social groups and civilization itself, AI. The social science that shows us how to make safe laboratories, as I have been doing, is also fundamental to making just and fair and productive practices, not only in laboratories or in firms, but on the internet and within AI supply chains. We live in a world where innovation is transforming historic institutions at such accelerated pace that we have difficulty chronicling the changes, no less understanding or repairing the damage. There are loud voices advocating further disruption, promoting AI for everything. I disagree and hope that Mythic will show that we do not need AI for everything. We need the humanities and social sciences for everyone. Thank you.
That's awkward. I was going to say that we need AI for everything. Leaves me with 5 minutes of dead time to kill, and my humming is not that good, so here we go. So I want to talk a little bit about, oh, there we go. This is good. It's going to make this much easier. All right, I want to talk a little bit about an article from the Scientific American of 1973. It came out a month before I was born. It was an article about animal locomotion. This is not, there we go. It's an article about animal locomotion. And what it did was it asked the question, how many kilocalories does it take to move a kilometer for a kilogram of mass? And they took this for many, many animals, and they put it on a graph. And that graph is quite famous now, and I'll tell you why. Well, first, some interesting things. It turns out mice, those little buggers, are just not that efficient. Salmon, quite efficient. But what makes the graph extremely interesting is a point on this graph that is a bit of an outlier, that is not properly an animal. Some of you may notice it. It is the most efficient thing on the graph. It is man on bicycle. Why I'm bringing this graph to you today is this graph has entered the folklore of the history of computing. It has entered it because a famous technologist looked at this graph and was inspired for a vision of computing. He looked at it and said, that's what a computer should be, a bicycle, but for the mind. I find that to be an inspiring vision in the context of Mythic. Look at what this vision is of computing. The driver is a human being. Computing is a tool that allows us to get to where we want to go to. It is something that enables our capacities, our locomotive capacities like a bicycle, but locomotion of the mind to take us to places we could never have imagined. It centers human beings. Unfortunately, that's not the vision of computing that predominates the world today. It looks something more like this. Bicycles for the mind, I don't know about that. How about we replace the mind? How about a piece of silicon that can do everything a human being can? Doesn't that sound exciting? How did we go from such an inspiring vision of computing to one that, I mean, look, I'm inspired. I would love to replace my grad students, I'll admit that. But outside of replacing my grad students, how did we fall so far from grace? Let's just take a step back and ask what happened. How did we end up here? So I'll do a little bit of a detour, and I'll just say I think there's a couple of reasons. One reason that's probably in the back of your mind, which is the thing I want to completely shut down today, is that this is an inevitable consequence, that this is a feature of supervised learning and machine learning and large language models and AI. It is not a feature. It is not inevitable. We ended up here through a set of tactical choices that people didn't even know they were making. So let me introduce you to something that is a wonderful observation by a sociologist, actually, called the Common Task Framework. The Common Task Framework is an idea behind computing. And it is, many people believe, the reason supervised learning and large language models have been successful as they have been. It's a sociological innovation. It says, if we want to go somewhere far, let's all agree on a common task, and then we'll just compete against benchmarks. And did we ever agree? So in the world of supervised learning, some of the benchmarks we agreed on, these may look familiar to some of you, are, look, we've got this big database of handwritten digits. Can we come up with an algorithm that recognizes them? We've got this big database of photos. Can you come up with an algorithm that can identify the objects in these photos? We've got this big database of proteins. Can you predict which ones are going to fold? Each of these common tasks became this lightning rod that people could do what they like to do best, which is compete and do better and better. But you'll notice something about these common tasks. These common tasks are all automation tasks. They're all tasks that ensure that at the bottom of the supervised learning pipeline is a set of technology optimized to automate the most base activities of human being. No one chose these tasks because, wow, this would be great to automate away people. They just needed a convenient task, and these were convenient tasks. I'm saying this because we have made choices along the way that have led us to be where we are, and while the future looks like this, I believe the future can look like this. And to do that, we can do the same things we've done before. We can go back to the common task framework and ask ourselves as people who study human beings, people who understand computing, what are common tasks? Common tasks that better result in things that help us, augment us. And computer scientists like common task frameworks, as they should, when they're well specified. There's nothing locking us in place. Similarly, I think we can take another approach. I think we can take concrete problems in the world that we as people want to see solved, but which are well outside the scope of the things that we have today, and try to build solutions to them to force the technology into a different track. I've put a few things here, but I'll just describe one of them since we have a premier novelist and writer. A novelist friend of mine emailed me the other day and said, these algorithms seem to just lead us to be such superficial readers. Like, we were already skimming. We already found 180 characters a bit too much. And now with these things, something exists to summarize the 180 characters? What's going on? So she asked a question, which has really stuck with me. She said, given that you believe in this bicycles in the mind stuff, and that was a little pejorative, there's no reason to put it that way. Given that you believe in this bicycles in the mind stuff, could there be an algorithm built that actually promoted deep reading? Wouldn't that be interesting? Why is that out of bounds? Could be entirely in bounds. And the combination of humanities and technology that Mythic could promote, amongst other things, I think could start to lead us to ask questions like this. A few years ago, I had to start thinking about, I don't like this future. I want the future to look like this. And I started to think, what could I do differently in my life? And one of the things that I got very lucky with was I had a chance to move to MIT. This is my first year here. This is my third month here. And so the main thing I've learned is everything is a number. The buildings are numbers. The people are all numbers. You each have a number. I hope you know that. But the thing that really motivated me to move here was that the mascot of MIT. Need I remind you, it is the beaver. There is something fantastic about the beaver. There is something fantastically optimistic about the beaver, something fantastically human about the beaver, because it is the impulse to build. And I think if we turn our energies into asking, what are things that we can build that bring out the human in us, I truly think we can realize bicycles for the mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan and Sendel. Okay, as part of our event, we're fortunate to hear now from two talented musicians, both students here at MIT, who embody a fusion of innovation and artistry. Their performance is more than just a moment of reflection, but a reminder of how human expression, whether in music, science, or scholarship, continues to inspire and connect us all. Please join me in welcoming Matthew Mihalik, a PhD student, and Andrew Lee, class of 2025.
Hi, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. My name is Matthew Mihalik. I'm a second-year PhD student here. I study material scientists. I'm a metallurgist by trade, and I'm also a Emerson Harris Fellow here, so I work under Miguel Zanon and Frank Carlberg. And a little bit about my research, I guess, is I study the production of iron and producing iron without carbon emissions is a very important thing. And so working on the production process to sort of move forward towards a more sustainable iron production environment is what I do my research on.
Hi, my name is Andrew Lee, and I'm a senior in electrical engineering and computer science. I'm interested in high-frequency integrated circuits and new silicon devices for the grid. And this is Soul Station by Hank Mobley.
Thank you so much, Matthew and Andrew, for that wonderful performance. I have to say that MIT is a great place to be a music professor when you have students like that. Okay, so now I'm excited to welcome Min Jin Lee back to MIT. She's the acclaimed author of Pachinko, a finalist for the National Book Award for Fiction. She'll be joined in conversation with Linda Henry, CEO of Boston Globe Media, for what promises to be a thought-provoking discussion about the intersection of storytelling, culture, and innovation. Welcome, Min and Linda.
a terrific launch this has been. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited that you were able to join us today. You're the perfect artist to cap off this incredible launch.
But I don't play the saxophone. But, no, I'm really excited to be here because I'm truly a nerd. And MIT is one of my favorite places in the world. I never applied to college here because I went to the Bronx High School of Science, and only the truly smart kids from Bronx Science got into MIT. But if I could have, I would have come here.
You made a character from go to MIT in your first book.
Because I can. I couldn't get in, but one of my characters got in.
As we kick this off, I just want to tell a little bit of my personal side, and that I went to grad school here almost 20 years ago, and I got a master's in real estate development, which for your number of people is 4, 11, and 15. It was a tremendous experience. I came in with technical skills, and I left with many, many more technical skills. But 20 years later, what I remember now is really the human aspect of it that came through. I don't have the same technical skills that I had 20 years ago, if you want your pivot table. But in terms of, I knew how to build a building, but I came away with an understanding of how humans react to buildings and what buildings can do for a city and what a city needs. And so I'm still involved in the built environment, and I lean back on my days here, my inspiration from here. But as I've expanded my view of cities and what it means and what I can do with my technical skills on a human side, I've realized that one of the things I can do for a city is make sure that there's a strong, trusted, independent newsroom at the heart of a city, and that allows other technical aspects of a city to work better. So I'm so thrilled with what this launch is. I get it. I see and appreciate the value of the technical and the humanities and what's being built here today. So thank you. So I know that one of the things, Pachinko was an incredible book. How many people have read Pachinko? This is a Pachinko-friendly crowd. So the part that I think is the best place to start is with that beautiful opening line. Do you want to talk to us about that thesis and what that line is?
Sure. So I'm really strange in my work as a novelist because all of my very long books, and the one that I just finished, I'm finishing, American Hagwon, they all begin with a thesis statement, which is not really the way most novelists work. So the thesis statement for Pachinko was, history has failed us, but no matter. History has failed us, but no matter. And I think that especially today, when we think about where we are at this very crucial moment before a historic election in which a nation is deeply polarized, I keep thinking about this line because when I came to it, I wasn't thinking about today, I was thinking about at that moment in light of the fact that I had studied so much history. The thing that I found when I did study so much history, and that's what I trained as an undergraduate, as a history major, which is probably not a very popular major anymore, and certainly not a popular major here, which I think is kind of sad. I think it's really sad because it can train you for so many different fields. If you think about your career being longer than just the 4 years. So I really thought that history failed all of us because history has eliminated, not intentionally, but the substance of history requires that we have documentation and primary documentation in order for us to study it. And primary documentation for a very long time, throughout most of history, written history, was allowed to those who are literate and those who are able to have documentation or to have other people write about you. Therefore, mostly we know about winners and leaders and kings. We don't know that much about regular people. Mostly we know nothing about women, not really. And I thought that was kind of fucked up. So I thought history has failed us. But going back to this idea of mythic, I put the human being at the center. And what I really saw, no matter what, is that it didn't matter. Even if documentation didn't prove that we existed, how much we yearned, how much we loved, how much we cared about the world, we persisted. And regular people persisted. So I thought, I'm going to recenter the people that history has left out, and I'm going to try to build this history. And that's why I write actually all my books. All the books that I write are really a response to the fact that I don't see these stories that are really obvious to me, but not recorded in books.
I think what's so incredible, and why I think this was such an enlightened choice to have you here today, is that you are at your core a hardcore academic. You majored in history at some college in Connecticut, and you put
because I couldn't apply to MIT. My guidance counselor was like, "You're never getting in."
But you put so much academic rigor and research into telling the story of Koreans in Japan. Why did you decide to tell that in the form of a novel?
Oh, because I wanted people to read it. Am I wrong, scholars?
So you wanted to connect it. So you're taking the academic work and connecting it to people.
Oh, very much so. It's funny because I'm going to talk about that other school across the river, where they supported the writing of my current book. And the way they did it is they had an institute. It's called the Radcliffe Institute of Advanced Studies at Harvard, something like that. I can't remember now. I'm thinking about too many things. But the most important part is that they picked 50 scholars from around the world from different fields. And they made us have lunch with each other. And they gave us money. And they said, do your work. Do your work. And then they also did this really strange thing, which is just like Mythic. But in some ways, it's so interesting. They said to everybody, you can have as many undergraduates working for you as possible. And I said, how many? And they said, as many as you can handle. And I said, I'm going to take 4, which was bonkers. Bonkers. But then I picked kids from every different discipline. And then I said, I want you to go talk to the other kids, and then I want you to give me transcripts of these kinds of questions. And the reason why I bring that up is because I had a pre-med student. I had a sociologist. I had an anthropologist. I had a kid who was pre-med, engineering, sociologist, and philosophy. I had a philosophy because I love philosophy. And it was great to have a young person talk about the trolley problem, while another talked about the fact that people didn't have health care in a certain era, just because they happened to be born a certain ethnicity. They were the same race, but a different ethnicity, a different culture. So in that sense, what I'm looking at is, how do I get to know as much as I possibly can? And at an institution like this, you want to advance research. And the thing that I really saw, the big failure of that program, and it's not the program, it's a failure of scholarship, is I met the smartest people I have ever met. They're so, so smart. And I thought, why does no one know what you do? It was baffling. It's like, how can you be doing such important work, but regular people don't know? And then I'm going to say something really mean. The biggest disseminator of information and culture in the United States is Hollywood. And they're not advancing research. They are not pushing us to better people. They're not. But they're really, really good at disseminating information. Why? Because they're really good at storytelling. Right? But the stories they tell, I mean, it takes my breath away in terms of what they don't do. And you know Boston Globe, such an incredibly important paper at the head of what they do in the world in terms of advancing the information that human beings need to get on. Local news and regional news, and even Boston Globe is not really a regional paper, but it's a state paper and also an international paper. It can't do as much as it can because we're killing journalists. We're killing them. And they can't even have jobs anymore. Every major newspaper just can't afford to send the reporter out to cover local school boards. What is the one issue in this election that we're not talking about? Education. No one's talking about education. We're talking about Haitians and cats. Lies. Lies. We're talking about Puerto Rico having some island and hurling insults at each other. And I'm not trying to be partisan right now. I'm just saying we need to have more information about the issues that really matter. Every person in this room cares deeply about education. What do we know about education in this election? We don't know. So things like that really bother me. My next book is actually about education. And this is the reason why I'm kind of getting hot. But to answer your question about scholarship, I actually, so right now for education, I'm studying every single discipline. And because this family travels around the world, because the average middle-class Korean family now, if they have a college education, they travel a lot. So they can actually have pedigrees, but they don't have money. Sound familiar? Right? So they have to go around the world trying to get jobs because now we're becoming migrants, educated migrants, in order to get jobs. And then we also have work from home now. So technically you have the freedom to work anywhere, but it's a freedom that has an enormous price. You actually don't know where you're supposed to be. And then also these companies, when they give you all these freedoms, they also have the freedom to get rid of you whenever they want to. I keep hearing about contract workers for some of my most brilliant students. I'm going, what, they're giving you a 6-month contract? Where are you supposed to live? And they said, well, I can work from home. I said, fabulous, who's gonna mentor you? Nobody. So all these issues make me really upset. And I think, well, how do I get people to listen? I have to tell a story. But then I can't just preach, because who wants to hear that? Nobody. So I have to write something that's really compelling to read, and that is hard to do for me. Other people can do it better than me.
Well, I think it's so, one, your sort of somewhat, your initial comment that you wanted people to read it, you wanted to connect your scholarship with people, and then you also, I feel like through the power of storytelling and through a novel format, you're able to allow us to empathize and sit in their shoes and see them as nuanced people, right? I think that a lot of us can sort of get this sort of omni view of what it was like to be, you know, a migrant, what it was like to immigrate, what it was like to be poor, sort of these different aspects. And so I feel like you did such a beautiful job of adding a lot of depth to people who might be grouped together.
It's interesting, but I was thinking about this quite a lot. Right now, we have a nation that's in conflict. And if we somehow forgot that it's us, and we looked away from it and looked at the conflict, it's actually really interesting, right? It sells a lot of papers, right? It actually engages most of us. But then we don't have an ending. We don't know where it begins and we don't know where it ends. And also, we certainly don't have a happy ending. We don't know. And even if we got necessarily a happy ending, whatever you think that is it really a happy ending for the other half of the country? That's really distressing. And I need to figure out, I just finished reading Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt.
Oh, this helped, yeah.
I don't know if anybody has read it, but the conclusion is we just have to throw all the phones into the ocean. But, no, the phone's okay. It can be useful, but it's not a phone, it's actually a supercomputer. So the thing that we're trying to do is how do we get as much information as possible that we need in a way that's compelling, in which we don't feel overwhelmed by the hopelessness and by the enormity of it. Like, I'm young, I'm older than you are. So I remember a time, like, actually I don't know how old you are, you look super young, but, but just take that for what it is. I was like, did I just objectify her? I don't know. Is that an HR violation? I don't work here. It's
You can harass me or whatever.
But so youth aside from Linda, I remember a time when we didn't have to know the news because you turned the television on and you watched it if you watched television news. You got the paper in the morning and you read it and you stopped. And you said you go on with your day. But it wasn't a continuous checking of what's going on and going on the roller coaster, which most of us are on right now. And I find that to be really distressing because I remember the peace that I had in my mind. I had a lot more peace when I didn't know as much. And I'm not in any way advocating that we shouldn't know things, but there's so much that we can handle because as much as computers can process, we cannot process that much. And that is very clear. Ask any neurologist.
So another reason why I think that you and your topics are such a good connection here to MIT is that MIT brings the best and brightest from around the world here. And so there's this sort of the experience of people coming to some place where they're not part of the majority, where they're experiencing migration. It's sort of in this international story. I know that a lot of people who are not Korean have come up to you and said, that was my family's experience too. Can you talk about sort of how this has been sort of a very specific, there are 600,000 Koreans in Japan. You're sort of really telling a story of a very specific group, and yet it's been so universally received.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, when I decided to write this story, it started because when I was an undergraduate, I had a speaker come and nobody wanted to go to the talk. So I was basically forced to attend this thing because I was a nice kid. And I went to church on Sundays at Yale, which was so bizarre. It was like 2 undergraduates. No, I wish I was kidding, but the pews were empty. And my grandfather was a minister. He ran an orphanage. And I found it really helpful to go to church on Sundays. And I would never talk to anybody. I go to church now. I don't talk to anybody. I find Christians really difficult. I do. Like, when everybody hates them, I'm like,
Yeah.
I always want to apologize. But having said that, because I went to church on Sundays, the minister knew who I was. And he was also the head of my residential college, Harry Adams, and he taught at the divinity school. So he said, this missionary is coming to speak about the Koreans in Japan. And he's thinking, bingo, right? Korean, I go to church, daughter of a minister, it's like, you gotta go. So I go to this thing, I don't wanna go, but I go, and I'm sitting there going like, man, this is so shitty. But there's a lot of cookies and stuff, all for me. Speaking of cookies, where's Tia? Where's Tia? Oh, she ran away. It's okay. Oh, anyway, she just had all these cookies in the green room. It was so many, I had a memory. But, and Linda and I didn't eat any.
No.
I know. Anyway, so I sat there, the missionary starts talking about the Koreans in Japan, and he's, really nice white guy. He's doing good in the world. And eventually he tells a story about how a little boy who's Korean, who was born in Japan, his parents are also born in Japan, he jumped off a building and he killed himself. He was age 13. And it turned out that his parents didn't have any reason as to why he killed himself. And this kind of connects with Mythic. He didn't know why he killed himself, and he killed himself because in his yearbook, his middle school yearbook that his parents found, his classmates who are Japanese had written to him, you smell like kimchi, you smell like garlic, we hate you, die, die, die. And I was a little kid. I mean, I was, 19? Like the age of some of my the undergraduates that I met today. And I just could not believe that 13-year-old, 12-year-old kids are writing this shit in yearbooks. And it kind of just stayed with me. But I never thought that I was gonna write Pachinko. Like, I just thought that's a really horrific thing. And I was a history major and I hadn't been taught that. And there was no Korean studies at Yale at that time. And I worked very hard to create Korean studies at Yale as an undergraduate because I was organizing and helped to do that. But going back to this whole idea of what do you do when you're really upset and how do you create change, I want to do it through fiction. I want to do it through fiction because I think people pay attention. And people pay attention because they can connect with things that have nothing to do with their own background. And I noticed that when I'm so sorry. I noticed that when I have so many letters being written to me, which is such a privilege as a writer to get letters. And I get these letters from so many people who are not Korean saying, this is the story of my family. And I think it is because people are connecting with what happened to their diasporic experience. I believe that we are losing our boundaries, we are losing our borders in the world. And we are having, for example, environmental refugees. Like there are certain places in America you can't live in anymore. That has nothing to do with ethnicity or politics. It's weather. Because rain doesn't care where you live. It's coming. Wind doesn't care where you live. It's here. And when I think about that, I think, oh, we have to consider what diaspora means. Is it a political condition? Is it a religious condition? Is it a scientific condition? And when I think about Mythic, I've been thinking about this quite a lot. And the thing that came to my mind over and over again this morning, and I know nothing about shipbuilding. Do you sail?
No.
Okay, yeah. I didn't have sailing in Queens. I'm not against it. If you're sailing, that's cool. So if you want to correct me, that's okay too. But I kept on thinking about ballast. Like the whole idea of having something heavy at the center of your ship or your boat to keep it steady and centered so it doesn't rock. And then I kept on thinking about the rudder, the little piece of material that's at the very, very bottom of the boat, which is connected to, in a sailboat, a tiller or a wheel in a ship, which guides. And it's all below the surface of water. And gosh, I hope I got that right.
You sound like a sailor to me.
And I want to use that metaphor, this thing that the humanities allows, which the humanities demand, this metaphor, to say that right now we're in this big storm. Mm. And I don't even know if we know where we're going. And all the sailors are turning against each other. And I think we need to write the course. I think we need to learn how to speak to each other again. I think we have to figure out that the captain can't exist alone. The sailors have to be involved too, but I keep thinking about our ballast and about our rudder and how it's missing. And I think about the fact that we don't know where we're going, and we don't have these maps. And I give that story to you because you guys could write the rest of that story about wherever you are in the world. I don't know where you are in that story, but we need to have these stories to figure out why we're so troubled. I mean, I have many students who are CS majors at Amherst College, and I don't teach often, I teach occasionally. I'm a Moody instructor. And when I do teach, I make a very, very big point. I guess I'm Moody in how often I teach. I'm not Moody in my classroom. I have very good reviews. But when I have my students, it's a class you have to apply for, yeah. And I limit it to 15 kids, so I get all these applications, and I make a very strong point of not taking kids who want to be writers, which is really strange. I try to give preference to English majors, but I really try to make sure that 75% of my class is made up of people who will never be writers. And they come to the class, and they're CS majors, they're engineers, they're everything but. And I often find that, and then I do this very strange thing where I explained it earlier. I make them do a group chat without me.
Like,
and
yeah, like a WhatsApp group. And
yeah, exactly. that kind of thing. But they have another thing for it, some application. Every year they have a new thing. No, no, professor, this is better. I'm like, all right, as long as I'm not on it. And I make them share songs. I make them check up on each other. And I make them become friends. So if Linda doesn't show up for class, I ask Sally, please call Linda. Did you check in on Linda? And if Anantha is in the cafeteria and he's sitting by himself, like, I want Linda to sit with him. And I say that. And I say, I want you to check in on the people that, and I want you guys to really get to know each other, because you'll never be great communicators unless you really listen to people. You really hear people. You really care about what they care about. So in terms of the phone, you should believe, like, I always just think that even though I'm not an engineer or CS major or a tech billionaire, although that'd be kind of fun. Like for a week, it'd be kind of fun. You can't even imagine how many young people come up to me and they show me a text and go, does he like me? And I can pretty much tell you with like 100% accuracy, because this is what I do. I study language. I study intention and commentary and tone and pacing and style. And if you don't put the human at the center of what you do, you're not going to be able to read the room. You're not going to be able to read the other person. Like without cognitive empathy, without an understanding, even just like a thinking of what the other person is experiencing, you will not get the job. You will not be able to keep the relationship. So I try to teach that. And I find it so rewarding to meet these young people who trust me and then start trusting in each other. Because I think that's what's really broken right now. We don't trust each other's good intentions. And that's what fucking libertarianism does. Because it's not all about me. It's a really lonely way to live when it's just all about me. So
I really liked your sailboat analogy, and it's, for me, when you started, I thought that you went for a much bigger sailboat. If we were to do a smaller sailboat on MIT, it's almost like they're putting humanities as the ballast here, and they're letting all of this technology go and fly and be built out and sort of take the boat where it needs to go, and they're just sort of putting this ballast in the middle, which I thought was a really, really powerful non-sailors analogy of the sailboat and what we're here launching today. You talked about how this study didn't exist. This study of Koreans in Japan didn't exist. What does that mean to you when you see something doesn't exist? Is that sort of sending you a message that, like, there's a reason why it doesn't exist, or there isn't an audience for it, or what did that tell you?
I think that I was telling the students earlier today that I went to the Bronx High School of Science, and there I was in the minority because I was perfectly good at math and sciences, and I'm not afraid of it. I respect it so enormously. But I knew very quickly in my BC calculus class that I was the dumbest child there. But it's kind of,
you had other talents.
I had other gifts. My impeccable sense of accessorizing. Yes. Yeah, I have absolutely. But it was because I think as a matter of fact, I think I mentioned this at the last time I was here at MIT, that I got a 2 in my BC calculus AP exam. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to tell people in case they want to leave. Because why would anybody talk to anybody who got a 2 in any AP exam? But I did, and I managed to get into almost every college. But going back to this whole thing with when something hasn't been done before, I don't think when I set out to write this book, I thought, oh, I'm going to write the first novel about the Korean Japanese in English for adults. I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm so wonderful, I'm so smart and brave. I was just thinking, this thing really calls to me. And whenever young people ask me, what should I do? I say, well, what questions and problems really call to you? Because then you'll stay with that question or problem. I know that there's a lot of pressure right now with the cost of education and with parental pressure and anxiety, and there's so much anxiety in this generation as well as with millennials, that you have to get a job that's well-paying. And I always think, well, it's a nice idea, because I want stability for everybody. However, I don't know if you'll be able to do things the way your parents did. I'm pretty sure you won't be able to do it. So whatever they think seemed credible to them at the time is not credible today. And as a matter of fact, I'll give you a little preview of my next novel, because the thesis statement of my next novel, which is the first line of the book, which has not changed in all of the iterations that I've been working on, is the rules of engagement have changed already. The rules of engagement have changed already. And that is my thesis about education. And if you know that the rules of engagement have changed already, what the fuck do you do? And I don't mean to create anxiety. What I really mean to do is to say, the way we did things before need to be really rethought of and recalibrated, because we have to come up with something. However, I do believe that the ancient philosophers were not wrong in the way we consider human problems. Like, I really like Epictetus. I think he's okay. You know, I like Aristotle very, very much. I like Plato. What they were thinking about, and you could cancel some of them if you want to because they didn't have perfect lives, but I think that's a mistake. I think that's a mistake. I think that to lose knowledge from people that you don't like because they didn't lead perfect lives would be a great loss of almost the entire libraries of the world. So I'm hoping that in light of the fact that if my thesis is correct, that the rules of engagement have changed already, what will you learn from the past that's doable? However, maybe our jobs and our functions and the things that we build must change.
So you very generously spent time with students today, and there was a huge line of students who wanted to spend time with you. We asked this audience to send questions in advance, and they had some terrific questions. I know you answered some great questions from the students today. So one person wrote, "Your novels deeply explore themes of culture, identity, and the immigrant experience. How do you see innovation in technology, media, or society at large shaping the way stories like yours are told and received in today's world?"
Everybody keeps saying that nobody reads anymore.
I beg to differ, but
yeah.
yeah.
Actually, I think that we read more than we've ever read in our lives, and everybody's always reading. So we're reading, and we're consuming, we're scanning more. We're reading a lot, but we're not reading as deeply. And I think that professors have a lot of anxiety, myself included, about assigning longer text because people complain a lot. But, which I think is really a shame, because I remember when I was at university, I did have to read 2 to 3 books a week. And as a consequence, very often I'll talk about something that I read about, let's say, Eisenhower's presidency, and then some student will say, "How do you know that?" I'm like, "Well, because of this book called Hidden Hand Presidency." And they'll go, "When did you read that?" I said, "When I was 19. And when you read something when you're 19 and 20, you actually can keep it in your head, even when you're 55. It's kind of cool. Like, I'm so sorry that people won't have that experience. I'm actually heartbroken that you won't have that experience. I have nothing to do with the Eisenhower presidency right now, but I actually learned a great deal about bluffing, because that's what that book is about. That book is about bluffing. It's about the fact that he was actually quite smart, but politically he would act dumb because he needed to deal with the fact that America is so anti-intellectual. Kind of cool, right?
What do you think about the role of arts and culture in helping to shape popular perceptions to important topics in a crowded media landscape in which audiences are often polarized and self-selecting? So that relates to what you just talked about, but this one adds in polarized and self-selecting audience.
I really wish that it wasn't always about money. I really wish that it was about quality. And I think that sometimes I do see quality emerging from different fields, and that makes me feel really excited. And also, I think what's really nice about Gen Z is they're really open to a kind of a global idea of things. Like, whether you have anime or graphic novels, or whether you have people who are watching K-dramas, like I was just talking to the dean about K-dramas today, and I just started recently watching K-dramas. I didn't know hardly anything about it, but one of my characters is obsessed with it, so then I was like, I better know something about K-dramas. You know, maybe it might be more useful.
For research, we get it, it's for research.
It really was. I was like, Eisenhower's not gonna be in this one, so. So I better go, look up this. So then I pulled all the top 10 lists of the historic important K-dramas and I started watching them and I was like, this is really interesting. And then, just as a lark, people totally randomly would come up to me and say they watched certain things. I'm going, wow, really? Like that is like 80 episodes. Yeah. But then they thought about it really thoughtfully and they had all these really great insights. And again, can we go back to insight for a second? What an important word. Because we always want to be insightful. We want to know things, but we really want to be insightful because we need that person in the room. It's like, oh, what did you see that I didn't see? Right? It's like, oh, Linda saw that, and I didn't see that, so I really need Linda to help me. And I think we're looking for insightful people, but insightful people often have to have a tremendous amount of foundational knowledge. You can't just like skip to the insight. It doesn't really work that way. So after you have a tremendous amount of foundational knowledge, which is what a great undergraduate education can be, it's here. If you want it, it's here. If you want to skip it, I'm so sorry to hear that, but it's definitely here. And there are many, many people here you could partner with and learn from. I mean, Boston, talk about.
It's fun.
You can't be in a city in America that has such a focus on education. This is the city. That said, and I can't believe I'm rooting for Boston right now, but facts are facts. Can we get to the insight after we have more knowledge and more respectful idea of knowledge? And can it be governed by a sense of civics? A sense of respect for our neighbor, a willingness to extend grace to those with whom you disagree. That would be nice, because then it's possible to have more change. I don't think change will happen until we can really hear each other and try to put away with the ego. Again, another philosophical inquiry about what is the role of the ego, and of course in psychology too.
The next question also addresses polarization. In an increasingly polarized society right now, how do you decide how much cultural heritage discussion should be included in a book so that I could reach and educate a wider audience?
Well,
this gets into that sort of specific yet universality.
It's so funny because I kind of think, would you even identify with a blob? Like, should I create a blob identity person for you so you can feel comfortable? Like, I know a lot about Russians because I read a lot of Russian novels. It's not just about white people, it's about Russian people. So if I read French novels in translation, it's about French people. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's about a people. Like, I had a really smart question earlier today, is how important is geography and where you lived to your personal identity? And I think it is important, but it's not important either. Like, it's not everything, but it's part of who you are. In the same way, if you go to MIT, or if you work at MIT, if you visit MIT, it's part of your biography, but it's not all who you are. You're so much more than that. Like, I would hate to be reduced to just one thing. I really like being Korean. I've always liked being Korean, which is, by the way, a strange thing to say, because lately I keep hearing about all these Koreans who hated being Korean. They keep writing books about it. And actually, I understand. Like, I was recently in Alabama, and I got this very nice thing, and I got to spend time at the most, I guess, the most elite, most like highly selective public university in Alabama, Auburn University. And it was really a great, great school. But then I was just thinking, like, wow, this is such a different atmosphere politically, so different. Doesn't mean that they're not nice. The politics are just very, very different. But then I was kind of struck with how there were almost no Koreans attending the campus. Like, all the people who came to my event drove from 4 states. Like, I was really flattered, but then I thought, what y'all people do here with all the Koreans? With all the Asians? Like, I know they're here somewhere because there's a huge Hyundai plant and a Kia plant over there. I don't know, it was really interesting. But I'm just saying all this because what I would really like it is if we could talk about these ethnicities and identities and cultural differences as part of a biography. Like, Aristotle was a Greek dude. Yes, he's a dead white male, but he was also a Greek dude. And he had his issues. And he didn't have his issues. And he also has certain precepts that I use today. Most storytellers use what he described in terms of storytelling today. Especially the storytellers all of you probably like, where you have a character who has a sense of recognition and a sense of reversal. Like, when you see a story that doesn't work and you're like, nothing happened. Like, they didn't mean Aristotle. So anyhow, so I would like it if we could be more open to the idea that I could talk about the Koreans in Japan, and I don't think of all Japanese people as evil. Like, this is silly. Like, most black people that I know don't hate all white people. It's just not true. And I think, like, all Latinos don't hate their oppressor, colonizer, if they're indigenous. And there's got to be a way that we talk about these things where we don't feel judged. And that sometimes we can ask the stupid questions and say the stupid things because we don't know. But we're never going to know more unless we feel safe. And I really wish, rather than feeling safe like someone's going to attack me, because this whole idea of feeling safe or unsafe, is I wish we can create safe spaces for each other to have intellectual inquiry. Because that way my students can learn, that way all of us can learn, and that would be, I think that can change things. I think we could have less polarization, but I do blame the fact that we don't have enough local news as a very serious issue about why we're so polarized. We keep focusing on national news, but not on local news. So then it creates all these divisions amongst our own neighborhoods. And I think that's really, really sad because our neighborhoods require more cohesion. We actually share the same issues.
Yeah, and the local issues affect you much more than the national issues. I think that for that question as well, I've heard you talk about how you hope that everybody who reads that book feels a little Korean, and how you feel a little Russian and a little Israeli and a little Muslim after reading your books. And so I think that what this question is getting to is, like, is it okay to be so specific when that's really your goal?
I think you would never connect with my work unless I was as specific as possible. I mean, the whole idea of specificity becoming universal is a commonly understood one, so I know that you guys all know that. But as special as I am, the thing that I feel like where the structure part is very classic. I do a very classic story structure, and that's the reason why in your mind you have a familiar sense of comprehension. I basically played everybody. I studied 19th century novels, and I just said, this is my form. I'm going to do the 19th century form. It's really hard to do. Most people won't do it anymore because it requires this huge landscape, and it takes a really long time. And also, it takes a lot of audacity to be in the position of God, where I actually know the beginning and the middle and the ending of every single one of my characters. Like, I'm basically saying, I know. I'm not first person, I'm not second person, I'm not third person limited. So you kind of have to have a kind of grandiosity of personality. And 19th century authors all did this. They all pretended to be God. And I was like, I'm going to try that. Why not? And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so hard. It's going to take me forever to write these books. Anyway, having done that, going back to the specificity. But the thing that I didn't realize that was so important is the emotional vulnerability that I had to use for myself. That's where the art part comes in, I think. The willingness to expose myself artistically, emotionally, and say, I have been afraid, I have been ashamed, I have been envious, I have been humiliated, I have been in love and rejected. And all those kinds of feelings are what make it universal too. So you have the specificity, you have the classical story structure, but you also have to have the emotional availability and the vulnerability. And I think that's the part that I really try to teach my students. I always tell them, like, what are you feeling that you're really embarrassed to say? Because I have this rule in my class, whatever happens in class, you're not allowed to share it outside the classroom, unless it's illegal. Then you should report each other. I don't care. Like if it's illegal, it's okay to talk about it. But barring that, as artists, we have to have emotional courage. But you're really safe in this room. I will protect you. I will be the adult. But then we have to talk about things that we don't want to talk about. So I get to learn about my students very well. My students get to learn about each other very well without judgment, with deep respect that this person had the courage to tell the truth. And I think that the emotions that are in both my books right now and the book that I'm working on, they're emotions that we've all felt. But would you tell somebody, oh, I wish I had done that, or I wish I hadn't done that, or I felt this way, and can you believe that I did this thing, or I felt contempt, or someone felt contempt toward me? Like, there are a lot of feelings that we don't want to admit to, but I think the novelist has to feel those things.
The final question that came from this esteemed audience is...
You're so good at this.
Oh, thank you.
She's really good at this.
Well, these are their questions. Given Pachinko's impact introducing millions of us to the real stories behind Korean migration to Japan, is there anything you would change in the way the story is told if you could write it again?
No.
You rewrote that a lot. You rewrote it a lot.
You know, I was recently asked when this book is going to come out next, and it's almost done. I think I'm going to probably turn it into my publisher in a few months. And then I'm going to see which editor I want to work with. And I was told that I probably have great latitude in terms of when it comes out. But I really want it to be really good. Like, I don't have to write that many books. Like, I mean, I don't, because I've made certain decisions about my life. And I want it to be really deeply enjoyable to you. Like, I don't want it to feel like homework. I want you to want to read it. And then I also want you to learn as a kind of a Trojan horse. Like, I think the novel for me has always been a Trojan horse of the wars that I'm fighting. And the wars that I'm fighting are about how do I get you to care more about each other and all of us. Like, I am so baffled as to why we don't care about the greater good. Right? Seems obvious. Like, you and I are connected. We need each other. And it can't be this blinders about just where I need to go. Every relationship can't just be transactionalism. I just see this so much, and I find it heartbreaking when I meet young people, and they say things like, can I meet you for coffee so I can pick your brain so I could become a novelist? And I get these letters, I'm going, wow, who told you to write this? You need an edit, like, of a personality. Like, how could you say this to another human being, right? Like, and I usually tell, and because they're 16, I have no problems because I'm 55. I'll just be like, don't say that. Don't ever say that again. I mean, if I see them in person, don't ever say that you could reverse engineer another person's life. You wouldn't want my life. I had a liver disease for 20, 30 years. Like, that, you wouldn't just like, you can't just reverse engineer anybody. And I love engineering. Like, I'm probably one of the only novelists in the world who loves engineering. And yet, it's so disrespectful to a person's humanness, right? To think that they're just a chain of molecules. Like, are you telling me that if I say I love my husband, that that's just a bunch of chemicals? Like, if he decides to stay married to me for 31 years, that willfulness, is that just chemical? I don't know. I guess I'm going to say no.
That is a really beautiful place to end. Thank you so much to all of you. That was a terrific conversation, and congratulations to MIT on this beautiful launch.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work. Thank you.
So I feel like I just saw a historic fireside chat. Min Jin Lee, Linda Henry, thank you so much for you reminded us that literature and storytelling reveal the nuances of the human existence. You also made us all want to be history majors. You channeled my inner James Carville, if I can say this. It's about the education, stupid. And also, thank you for rooting for Boston. And you can say anything in Boston, but I'll say the one thing you're not allowed to say when you're from the Bronx and Harlem. Good luck to your Yankees tonight. So now we'll reset. Good afternoon, everybody. It's truly wonderful to be here with all of you today, celebrating what's been a vibrant and inspiring launch of the MIT Human Insight Collaborative. Mythic is such a mythic name for Mythic. I want to thank each of you for the energy you've brought to every conversation, every idea, not only during this launch, but before, when we were all gathering together. I had some great conversations. I had a conversation, by the way, with Laurie McGovern, who said, Mythic, I think this is MIT Spring. What a great vision for what we saw here today. Thank you, Laurie. Because today, we've been reminded that MIT stands for more than breakthroughs in science and technology. It's a place where the humanities, the arts, the social sciences can truly flourish as well. Today we witnessed how humanities enrich technology, inform policies, and crucially promote human-centered perspectives in tackling global issues like climate change and public health and social equity. As President Kornbluf highlighted when we started, Mythic embodies MIT's commitment to merging humanistic insights with technological innovation to develop solutions that enhance society. This intersection of the humanities and sciences is what makes Mythic truly revolutionary. And I'm especially inspired by the potential it has to transform our students' education and foster cross-disciplinary collaboration throughout this entire institute. Dean Rayo, with great enthusiasm today, shared how Mythic will catalyze connections across communities, supporting interdisciplinary projects that tackle some of today's most complex global issues. That sentiment was also powerfully reinforced by professors and social scientists Silby and Mulanathan, whose research exemplifies how the convergence of disciplines can generate real-world solutions to crucial social issues, and give a push to the idea that humanities and social sciences are for everything, and that in the end, it's all about creating a bicycle for the mind. And we also got to see some of our great students give a musical interlude, which reminds me to let you know, off script, that the Music and Theater Arts building is opening on December 6th. Another amazing gem for Shas. Augustine, I think this is your semester. Long last. So as we close today, let's recognize that this is only the beginning. Mythic represents a commitment to collaboration, a spirit of curiosity, and the belief that uniting the humanities and the sciences results in solutions that are not only innovative, but meaningful and forever lasting. MIT has been a place where boundless ideas and entrepreneurial energy come together to meet the world's toughest challenges. With Mythic, we're adding another powerful new layer to that mission, one that captures the richness of human experience and imagination. And so a heartfelt thank to all of you, all of our esteemed speakers, our performers this afternoon. You've brought unique insights and talents, and together you've made today's launch not only inspiring, but truly memorable. And I'd also like to echo President Kornbluth in extending special thanks to Dean Augustin Rayo, to incredible person behind the scenes, which is our Dean of Engineering and, as was stated, our first Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer, which is so fitting for cross-pollinating ideas like this one, Dean Anantha Chandrasekhasan, and our Associate Dean, Carol Mencken, for their vision, their leadership in bringing Mithic to life. Your efforts have set a stage for this initiative, and your commitment to cross-cutting collaboration has energized us all for the work ahead. So thank you for making this a truly remarkable beginning. Now I get the honor of inviting you to Lobby 13, where we'll have a reception. And thank you all again for being here today for such a monumental afternoon.